Welcome back to my tutorial. Today, I'm going to talk about glazing. Glazing is an important technique in watercolor painting process. Glazing might seem simple, but it's actually a powerful way to make your watercolor art look more three-dimensional and expressive. In this video, we'll cover glazing technique, glazing color chart exercise and study, how to control volume through layering, and finally, some tricks for glazing. Glazing is basically just layering. What makes watercolor special is its transparency. Unlike other mediums, by building up layers, we can gradually build up the form and rich colors of our subject. Glazing is usually done after the previous layer has completely dried. That's because once the painting is dry, it's absorbed into the paper, so adding a new layer won't disturb the one underneath. If you glaze while the first layer is still wet, the color can mix together and you won't get the clean, controlled result you want. Also, since watercolor is transparent, light color can't cover darker ones, so we usually start with light colors in the first layer and gradually build up the darker tones. For the first layer of the bulldog, I started with a light watery brown wash. This gave us a soft, transparent base to work from. After that layer was completely dry, I continued building up the form with the second, third, and even fourth layers. Each layer helped me deepen the tones and slowly bring out the dog's three-dimensional form. You might notice that I didn't go in with dark pigment right away. Instead, I used different shades of brown and layered them to create depth. This way, the shadows look richer and more natural. If you look closely, you can see subtle shift in the color. Some areas look more reddish brown, while others look cooler, almost purplish, and that really depends on how the light hits the form. Before I started painting this macaque, I made this glazing color chart. I highly recommend doing this if you are not sure how your pigment will look when layered. It's a super helpful way to see how different colors interact through glazing before you actually start painting. This can really help you get better results with color mixing. The parrot's belly and the wings are mainly made up of two colors, yellow and blue. But because of the way light hits the feather, the color shifts slightly depending on the angle, giving it a three-dimensional look. For the yellow feather on the belly, I used lemon yellow as the first base layer. That's because watercolor is transparent. The color you used underneath will affect the color you apply later. Lemon yellow will make the following layers look brighter and more vibrant. Let's do a quick test. Here, I first applied a light wash of lemon yellow. Once it dried completely, I glazed a layer of brilliant red over it. As you can see, it turned into a bright, glowing orange. That's why I use lemon yellow as the first layer under the glazings. Helps make the belly area really pop with color. Glazing also changes the color, like here. When I glazed the yellow over blue, it created a green tone in the overlapped area. Different color combination will give you different result, and the order you layer them in can make a difference too. So try experimenting. Make a color chart to explore how the color shift and interact. Glazing is a simple and effective way to control volume in watercolor. By layering light washes, we can slowly build depth and shape in our painting. Let's look at this white lily as an example. For the first layer, I just used a very watery light yellow. At this stage, it looks pretty flat and doesn't really have any form yet, and that's totally okay. Once it dry, I start glazing over it to gently painting the shadow on each petal. I'm using a mix of ultramarine blue with just a little permanent green, which gives a cool bluish tone. With the second and third glaze, I slowly bring out the shape and the volume of the flower. Where there's more shadow, I add more layers. In the certain part of the flower, I used more yellow-green glaze to show the way it curved inward. By layering like this, we can create a soft, sweet effect, even though the flower itself is white. That's the magic of glazing. It helps us show form, adjust contrast, and even shift the color a bit to make the subject feel more alive. So don't worry if your first layer looks too simple. Just take it one step at a time, and let each glaze slowly bring your painting to life. So by now, you probably have a basic idea of what glazing is and how it works. Next, I'd now share a few help tips that can make your glazing process more smoother and more effective. First, always make sure the previous layer is completely dry before you start glazing. If it's still wet, the color will blend instead of layering, and you won't get the clear effect you are aiming for. Second, be gentle with your brush when glazing. Try not to scrub or use rough bristles. If you go over the seam area too much, it can lift the layer underneath and muddy your colors. We want smooth, clear layers, not blended or disturbed ones. Third, remember that the more layers you glaze, the darker your painting will become. So keep an eye on the overall contrast. You don't want to add too many layers and make the painting look flat or heavy. A few well-placed glaze go a long way. Lastly, be careful when layering warm and cool colors. Sometimes that combination can turn a bit muddy. It's a good idea to test your color mixture on a scrap piece of paper or make a small color chart before applying them to your artwork. So those are a few important tips about watercolor glazing that I hope will be helpful in your watercolor journey. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more watercolor tips and tutorials.